Okay, ready?
Oh yeah.
Good. Okay, so today we're really going to focus on different management type of things that will really help students make it through to the end of the course. Make it easier for you to help them make it to the end of the course. So that's really going to be our focus for today. Next slide, Dan. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, how to keep them motivated and what kinds of motivation they might have. There's an awful lot of talk in the literature about kinds of motivation, and we really always want, to strive to have students just have an intrinsic interest, an intrinsic motivation, just a genuine interest in the topic and a love of learning, and have them do projects and things where they're in the zone. We would love that. That in terms of education is where they really get the deep dive. They have a deeper knowledge of the subject. The extrinsic motivation are things, the carrot, holding that carrot out for them, going for the goal. And a lot of times, it's going for the grade or going for the paycheck, right? That's the goal. That's the only reason why I'm doing this, is I need a good grade. So the extrinsic motivation is that kind of, goal reward, system at the end of the task. They're not always mutually exclusive. And sometimes, even though we want to aim, to keep students engaged and aim to have them have that intrinsic motivation, it's not a bad thing to have that extrinsic motivation to help them get over that gap, help them get past the doldrums. Next slide. Okay, so, here I just explained intrinsic motivation, but it really requires that they have a sense of calm, a sense of security, a sense of, having a sense of well-being. They've got to feel confident to be able to pursue that subject more deeply. But we all know the times we're living in, it's a pandemic. And I know faculty and students alike have this kind of undercurrent of stress, at the very least, an undercurrent of stress that's going on in their life. So it's really hard to focus and it's really hard to concentrate. Next slide. So we have to use both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation to get them to the end, to get them to show up, to do it. Showing up is 90%. Do it, show up, get there, get it done. And so they're giving them a certain amount of autonomy to have them generate their own study guides, to give them, students can create their own Zoom, so that they could create their own virtual study groups, or give them breakout groups where they can hang out, talk about, what they need to talk about the course, what's me, as if they were congregating in the hallway. Give that to them. And then the important thing too is to give them really timely and really authentic's the word, feedback. So, rather than good job, well done, that kind of a thing. I keep going back to it, but going into their, in SpeedGrader, giving them that video feedback where you say, right here, this is on point. Right here, I need you to develop it more. But I could, and here's the clincher. I can see how much time you put into this. Even if it's a C work, they put some work into it, recognize that, right? So that gives them the encouragement, but it's not a false compliment. They need that. They need to see your face and hear your voice. Here's the extrinsic motivation. Break it down, right? Bring it into chunks, make it smaller and more manageable for them. If it's a term paper, if it's a lab report, I add this link here, University of Minnesota assignment calculator, but there's lots online. It's fabulous, right? They can plug in what they need to do and it breaks it down. And when it's due, and it breaks it down for them. And time management is, for all the student feedback I get on, how did you learn this? How did you feel you've mastered this? How, what do you need to do? All students say time management. right? They just need help with that time management. And then there's also, this is weird, but I thought I'd put it there. I don't know if it's going to be signs of the future or not, but it's a virtual study buddy. Really strange. Check it out. It's a video, a YouTube video of somebody studying with calming music for 25 minutes.
I saw that, and that actually
it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but you know, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there's more out there like this. Look, it's 25 minutes, so it's timed. All I got to do is sit my butt here and do this for 25 minutes. That's it. And then, you know, there's someone there studying with you, reminding you what you're supposed to do, and it's very calming music. I remember reading a book, I'm off topic. I remember reading a book, it's by Anne Lamott, and it's called Bird by Bird, and she's an author. And basically, she had a report due, and her dad told her, Anne, break it down. And it was on birds of North America or something. He goes, break it down, bird by bird, you know, chunk it out, chunk it out, chunk it out. That's so helpful for students. Sorry about that. Next slide. Student-generated study guides. Let's take a look at that. So they could do that in Zoom breakout rooms, as I said, but they could do it asynchronously as well. And you can do it in discussions, and you can also do it in Canvas collaborations. I've done this with Microsoft Office. So everybody has Microsoft Office, and doing it in Teams, doing it in Google collaborations, doing it in discussions. There's all kinds of ways for them to have kind of these asynchronous conversations and letting them help each other. Next slide. I always have a discussion that's pinned to the top, and I ask all students to subscribe to. And it is just a student discussion, student support. So I monitor it. You know, they're not asking for answers to the test. What they're saying is, what are we supposed to do? You know, it's like, she said this in instructions. What does that mean? You know, that kind of a thing. And another student can help them out. And boy, that's a nice collaboration to start to build. You know, that's kind of a teamwork collaboration. And so I always recommend doing it and having them help each other out. Okay, next slide. So helping students manage stress. One of the important things to keep in mind is this. It's a duality. The course structure itself needs to be very organized. You need to have it real clear, and you need to have deadlines it shows up in assignments so that it shows up on their calendar, right? If we have international students that are home, remember time zones. The flexibility is the opposite side of the same coin. However, in your policies, give them some slack. It's been a rough term for faculty and students alike. Cut them some slack. Allow for extensions. Don't close the assignment with an end date. Give them some flexibility, and give yourself some flexibility too. Next slide. So here I have, and this is available to you, here I have some of the examples of how you can make the structure of the course very clear, very organized, and real user-friendly, right? We talked about some of this. The next slide shows you the flexibility in terms of course policies, you know, and even maybe in terms of, you know, the content, right? You know, how would you like to show me your learning? Here are some, you know, options. You know, you can take a quiz, you can do a PowerPoint presentation, you can make a video, giving them options, right? And then that social presence that is so important. Next slide. All right. This is something I wanted to introduce. You may or may not know about it in terms of student management using Canvas Analytics. Next slide.
This is my segment, is it not?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. So you go for it. Hey, you know what? You give me a slide. I can talk for 50 minutes.
I know you can.
For 30 years.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Dan.
Okay, can we, just wanted to pause briefly in case there are any questions, and we don't mind being interrupted at all, so
Not at all.
there's just the three of you. Um, so we do want to be sure, and we have multiple perspectives here, some faculty folks and advisors, so we want to be sure your questions get answered. So, uh, okay, so Canvas Analytics, this segment is just about how can the existing tools here help you save time and use it most effectively, right? Your schedule and your brains are stretched just as much as the students. So one of those things is Canvas Analytics. There are two pathways to it. You can add it to your left side menu, and you can also get to it from this button here, which is on the right side of your home page. So that's always going to be there. New Analytics is just a tool that kind of breaks down some statistics and gives you a visual display of some of the things that are going on in the course. Canvas itself also has a guide. The link is here on its uses and features and stuff like that. So we're going to just show you briefly a few of the things that are possible. So when you click into it, you'll get to a screen with these 4 tabs across the top. We've got course grade on the left side and reports on the right side. These are the two most straightforward, so they're together here on this slide. So the course grade is going to show you the class average for any particular assignment. Graded assignments are going to be on the graph somewhere with a blue dot. Ungraded assignments are at the bottom with a white dot. So that's the difference between those. You can also click into any of these dots to see the details for that assignment. That'll break it down by student. The reports tab will let you run any of these reports here. They're pretty straightforward. Course activity is probably the most comprehensive, and we'll look at some of the details there in a second. But the names are pretty much describe what you'll see there. When you're looking at this, there'll be a button on the far right that'll just say run this report. So, and that'll spit out a CSV file for you, a spreadsheet. So you can manipulate it that way too if that's valuable to you. Okay, next tab is weekly online activity. This has a lot of data represented here. We have average page views per week in the course and average participation per week. So it's important to know how these kind of get broken down. A page view is just a student looks at a thing. A participation is a student does a thing, submits an assignment, posts a reply to a discussion. You know, they're actually contributing something or making progress in the course. So you can see how both of those things break down week by week. The dotted line represents the week in progress. So that'll fill in once the week is complete, and the weeks run Sunday to Saturday. You can click into these dots as well to see details on an individual basis. And some of that's going to be similar to what we'll see on the next tab, which is the student tab. But first, still on this same weekly activity tab here, this is the top half. If you scroll down, you're going to see a table like this. This gives you the numeric values of some of those charts up top. Page views per item and participations per item. So anything you've added to the course is going to be on a list here. You'll have multiple pages of this list in most cases. You've got your home page here, for example, discussion. Each discussion is going to be its own line item. Assignments here, LTI tool, that's kind of a third-party tool that we've added here, the syllabus page. and it'll, this is the grade center. So it'll, it'll continue from there. So this is telling you how many students of your course have accessed that item, how many unique views they've had, in this case 281, and how many participations there have been, in this case 69, which means there have been, these 23 students have contributed 69 posts or replies to this discussion. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you for the head nods. Great. So pretty straightforward, but you can start to see how that'll give you some indicators of, if you see a sudden drop off on this graph here, down here you can take a look to see, are there any particular students who aren't viewing the most recent items? Maybe those students need some outreach. Or did it drop off for everybody in a particular week? What's going on there? So, and this is true, if you might have, I think your college, Angela, has an advising course, and there might be some, for new majors or something like that, there might be some resources in there that you're always kind of pushing, encouraging them to take a look at, if before you set up an advising appointment, take a look at these. Maybe the answer you're looking for is actually in here. So you can see what kind of traffic those items are getting.
Yeah, I used to test things. I wasn't in Canvas at the time, I was in Blackboard, but I used a similar function to test things like, for example, Rhonda shared that virtual study buddy, or sometimes I've put like for extra credit resources where I want to see, is it worth it for them to click on it, or a video? And I would, put something in as optional and then check the analytics to see, was it apparently worth it or not for the students?
Okay, and as promised, this is the student tab, the last one in the analytics area. So this, if you were to see the whole screen, there would be student names along the left side of this table. So, just for anonymity, we cut that off, but you can see that, this is the data you'd see for 3 students, and the rest of the class would be below that. So broken down by individual, you can see their current grade, the percent of things they've submitted on time based on the due dates you've put on things, their last participation, their last page view, total page view, and total participation. So that again is another great place to check for red flags, and it's, this participation is going to have a lot of overlap with the grade center, so if somebody's not submitting things, you're going to see that here as well as the grade center. So just another great place to keep in mind if you're looking to, what are some other ways we can support our students, and who are those individuals who might need some additional support or some encouragement. Maybe life happened to them and that's why their numbers are down. So how can we support them in those cases? Okay, you can also from this page click on a student name and get to some individual data about that student. Again, could be useful if you notice a flag or something that's concerning to you. Click into that student and you can see their weekly data. This is just an individual version of the graph that's on the weekly activity tab. So just know that that's there as well. Finally, a couple things that are available to you. On a couple of these tabs, you're going to see these buttons here on the right edge. The arrow is download CSV. That is going to give you a spreadsheet of what you're seeing at the moment. So if you want to download it, work with it in another way, you have that option. The other one is the envelope. It's called Message Students Who. That'll bring up this box here on the bottom. And for any given assignment that you might be looking at, you can say, oh, I'm going to send a note right from this screen I'm going to send a message to, you know, the 2 students who submitted this late, or the 3 students who, for whom this assignment is missing. So it's just a convenience kind of thing, but it'll let you shoot a message to them directly from here. And by
Can I butt in?
yeah,
I did. I butt in anyway. This is super useful because this ties back into helping them with student management, right? So like I said, you know, you put a deadline in the assignment so it shows up on their calendar, but the flexibility comes with giving them, you know, some leeway. This is a great way to be able to message those students and say, you know, your assignments are late, are not showing up. I need to remind you. Boom, you're done. And you know, it helps them, you know, keep them on track and get them motivated to get to the end. Sorry I butted in, Dan.
no, don't be sorry. That was great. Thank you. Pause again. Questions about analytics?
I have a question. So in that message students who, it says score range. Like if I put a score range in there but didn't choose an assignment, is that the final grade score range that it's pulling from? Or what is that pulling from?
It is a range that you indicate, I believe. So we can actually take a look. Let's just jump over here.
Yeah, that's a great question. While he's looking it up, that's a similar way that I used to really encourage students, because a lot of times students don't realize that if they do, you know, X, Y, and Z, they in fact do have a chance to pass the class, because sometimes they think they're, you know, so far behind they're not going to do it. But when you put in that range, then you can even target. You know, I know that students, if they're at a 70% or a 60% up to this level, if they do these assignments, they can pass. And so then you message them with that information of how they can get back on track. I've done similar things in the past, and a lot of students have always contacted me. Wow, I didn't realize I had an option. I thought I was gone for. And so this tool lets you do it, you know, very targeted.
I think I answered my own question. I think it is if I just go in and I haven't chosen anything, and I just am looking at it's because it says average course grade across the top, and I hit message students who, if I put in like 92 to 100, it's only pulling those students who have an A in the class.
Yes, it will filter it based on what you put in there. It's just a bit limited because it's based on, you know, you can only adjust the percentage of the total grade, so it's not by assignment, it's their current total score in the course.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, and it'll BCC everybody by default, which is the only option actually. But yep, and it'll go to their inbox through Canvas, just like any other message there. And by default, that will also go to their student email, unless they've turned that off, which hopefully nobody has. Okay, great question. Oops, it does that every time. Okay, any other questions?
Actually, Dan, if it's okay with you, I noticed that when I sent you the Google PowerPoint, I took a Google Slides, downloaded it to PowerPoint, and set it on, and apparently it messed up the formatting. So if it would be okay with you, can I just share my screen? I fixed a couple things. And
Sure. Yeah,
awesome.
if you've updated it.
Yeah, I added a couple different resources. After our last time, I did play around with annotating in Zoom particularly. So let me share this. Okay, can everybody see the using annotated screenshots now? Or screencasts on the slide?
That's great.
Okay, so I wanted to share this topic on annotated screencasts as a way for managing student behaviors, essentially as that proactive way to nip questions in the bud, help students even self-regulate their learning because you're helping them address their questions. And then it's also a really great way to give feedback. And like Rhonda said, sometimes when we're giving feedback, again, making sure that we're there, that they see who we are, they hear our voice, they know exactly what we're looking for. So annotated screencast is one of those wonderful tools that it can give you a lot of options to kind of do all of that. So I'm going to share a few different ways to do that. And one of the things that I like, with Google Slides in particular, as opposed to some other tools. So in the annotated screenshot, essentially this is what we're doing right now because we're recording this, but you can do this on your own. And in Google Slides, I have the slide and presentation mode, and I'm just going to click pointer. So at times you could see what I'm highlighting. It still allows you to click to move the slides, but it does allow you to highlight where you're referring to. So again, some of the things it allows you to do, you can explain in detail the assignments, you can give feedback. This website there, again, Dan's going to share all this, so we'll update the slides. That has some nice structures on how to talk about your thinking, because it not only does it help students with the screencast because they can see what you're looking at, and what you're honing in on as you're talking. It also, when you're talking, you're sharing your thinking as an expert. And there's a lot of research around making thinking explicit, thinking like an expert, learning to learn, and the way we visualize our thinking. So I did put a couple of resources in there. And bottom line is it allows us to answer that question, what do you mean by that? Because even if you're looking at a well-designed rubric and you're looking at assignment directions, sometimes you really just still don't quite understand what the faculty member is asking. And so creating a screencast of your assignment expectations and posting that along with your assignment directions and your rubric really just helps the student get a full picture.
Tracy, can I butt in?
Sure.
I was doing a lot of videos with a lot of the artists in their studios. And one of the things that that they were doing is telling them now, take the brush, mix it with, this, put it here. And I would stop them and say, how do you know how much? And it would be like, or how do you know how far? How do you know? And it's kind of a visceral knowledge of their materials that students don't have. Same thing with looking at an image. You bring to it a lot of expertise that students don't have, or just, reading an essay or looking what you're bringing to it, a lot of expertise. So if you're able to tell them why and how you're thinking about it, it really gives them a lot more insight. And that's really where the learning process begins. Sorry.
No, that's perfect, because I think that's one of the advantages to doing that annotated screenshot, because a lot of times when we're typing up the directions, we know what we're looking for even. I know exactly what my expectation is, and I say, write a 250-word essay, and I might say blah, blah, a few sentences about it, but to a student who's never done that before, and maybe this is the first class in that particular genre, because maybe they only took, say tech writing or rhetorical writing or whatever, and they have no idea what I'm looking for. But when I do the screencast, I can talk them through my thinking and let them know, because again, they haven't done it before. And I think all of us, I know I love cooking shows, for example. I haven't watched them in a long time, but I used to love watching them. Those types of activities, what makes these shows really popular and why most people enjoy doing it, they're talking about their decision making as they go. They're describing, so it isn't enough sometimes to see words, going back to the cooking reference. If cooking was easy by reading a recipe, everybody could be a gourmet cook, but it's just not. And there's so many intangibles. So again, when you're doing the screencast, you can organize it so you're literally pointing to the different parts as you're talking. Another thing, again, understanding the grading or explaining your grading. Sometimes, along with those assignment directions, another big helpful tool in both cutting down questions that you get on explaining your grading, but then also reducing that student anxiety and helping them understand they can do it, goes with sharing an annotated exemplar and a non-exemplar. This is especially true with a lot of our alternative populations, and by alternative I mean ones that may not be from already college-educated families and all that. Because even if you circle a mistake and let them know they made a mistake, they don't know why in a lot of those cases. So when you're going through an assignment, pointing out either to the negative, something that you want them to fix, or something that they did well, but talking them through what made an example, what made it a good one, what made it a bad one, helping them know both ends of the spectrum. And again, you know what you're looking for. You can do these screencasts so quickly, but then just posting them in the class, and they save a lot of that, again, reduce anxiety and save you questions. So 2 benefits. You can also do it, again, when you're having your students, especially now that we are all online and everything's online, helping them see how you're using a specific resources or how to get one. A lot of times in some of the stuff that I have to do, we look at the Michigan Schools Data website. Well, let me tell you, it's a bureaucratic website made by the state of Michigan with all the testing data, all the assessment data. It's layers and layers and layers and layers deep. And if you don't know how to get where you want to go, it can be really, difficult for a student because they click on it, and then on top of that, you've got the ads all over the page and just so many distractions. But if you can make an annotated screencast and literally you just click through the different websites showing students, click here, click here, click here, and how it looks. Even things like we've all had experience, you're staring at a page and someone told you to click on something, but maybe you're looking for a button, but it's a drop down now. Or those, different things that even update. Just showing them, how do you get there? Looking for library resources, going through Flight, making your own screencast, or anything to do with Flight, you can email our librarians, and I'm assuming the KCAD librarians are the same way because they all collaboratively work together. They will gladly make you a screencast for your students of how to use a particular resource, or even how to cite something, or using those citation managers. They are happy to do that. They already have a lot that they've created, but they also will make them for your course. Again, helping your students see exactly how they're doing it. Because if you were in face-to-face, probably you'd have the big screen right behind you and you'd be talking them through this. They would see it as you do it. And the annotated screencast is about the closest thing that we get to it. So I just put in this, just some basic directions. I've got additional references. I didn't want to make it too complicated because it can go off into just so many different ways. Making a screencast is kind of like your cell phone. The bottom line is pick an option that you're comfortable with and practice with it. But I did put in just some tips about doing it because you always want to make sure, again, practice with the tools. One thing, if you're doing a screencast in Zoom, for example, the Zoom tool is the same one that's controlling everything else. So if you're annotating on, for example, a 3-page assignment in Zoom, you have to toggle back and forth with the cursor button in order to move the page. Whereas if you use like Screencastify, which is a Google extension, that's one of the ones that I like to use a lot, you can maneuver your documents at the same time that you are annotating. The two don't conflict. So again, it's one of those things, you pick one and you play, and you can definitely play, give one of us a call, and we're happy to work with that with you, but most of them are fairly straightforward. One of the nice things, most of them now have, I put down here, that you can pause the recording. So that's something that you can save students a lot of time especially if you are working with something where you are, again, digging into that website and having to go back and forth. You can pause the recording while you reorient all your different tabs. And that just makes your screencast look a bit more professional and saves the students time. And then when you're done with your recording, put the directions in on how and where to save them. Because again, pros and cons of all these choices. There's no one perfect answer for all of these. The only things we can do are just recommend some things for simplicity's sake. And one of them, we have learned over time that YouTube has the best and easiest closed captioning. Closed captioning is a requirement for ADA. And even though sometimes it can seem like a real pain to do it, it's actually, again, super helpful, not just to people with disabilities, but a lot of people who need to read the words in order to see it. They may have auditory processing, or they're looking at a small device. So that really is helpful across the board. A lot of people use closed caption without a disability, but you can import them into YouTube. You can import them from Zoom, from Teams. That's a nice thing about YouTube, because also people have the YouTube app typically on their cell phone, and it does the buffering. So it gets fewer bandwidth issues. And again, when it's in YouTube, Canvas is beautiful because Canvas, you just import straight from YouTube right into your Canvas course, and then students have a choice. They can either go to YouTube if you give them a playlist like we do the 2-minute tech tips, or they can go to the course. And either way, you don't have to do any more work. You've created it, but they can access it in whatever pathway fits them best. So again, you're opening up their choices, but you're keeping your workload more efficient so you can spend time on giving them more feedback. And again, YouTube and Canvas, they have some minor editing things that you can do with that, but not, again, it's not overwhelming, which is nice. So let me now it's not liking me, but I'm going to go ahead on that note, and I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions. Either that means I talked too much or not enough, or, Ann some of you heard some of this before, but.
As you're thinking, let me show you 2 other things, just to, as locations to go for additional help if you aren't finding the answer immediately. The first is within Canvas, the help button that's always on your far left menu. This is going to pull up a bunch of stuff, all very useful. We've got some Ferris particular things in here, like our syllabus attachment. Canvas Guides is Canvas's help website. There's a version for instructors and students, so those are great. They have video tutorials as well that are here. This is our e-learning website here, and our contact information, our libraries. Here is where you can submit a ticket to Canvas, and we'll often do that if we can't solve a problem locally here. So just a bunch of helpful stuff, so it's good to know what is there. Secondly is our admittedly under construction training website. This document here is what you might have seen in the UWN recently, that the sessions we're offering this month and next. Below that are an assemblage of things that we've put together over the last year or so, along with some of the things that are out there from our vendors. The Canvas help sites, these are the same resources that are in the Canvas help menu. These 3 are all playlists on our YouTube channel. So some things that we've put together for common questions and things like that. Zoom has its own help site, of course, which is very good. Respondus, which is the lockdown browser people, they have a help site as well. So I know many folks use that. And we've got some other stuff here as well. That's going to be built on and revamped and added to very intentionally in the coming months. So that's just e-learning / training. So good place to keep an eye on. And of course, always feel free to contact us if there's something you can't find on your own, or if there's a unexpected problem that we can help you with.
Say, Dan, would you mind sharing also the Keep Teaching that they can access?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That is a course in Canvas. It's probably not on your dashboard, but it is a public course. We can throw the URL in the chat. This is for our faculty, and contains all kinds of stuff that can be helpful to you. It began to exist in March, and we've built on it since then. It's still going to be relevant into the spring for sure. all these things you are welcome to make use of. And if there's something that you're wondering that's not in any of these places, please let us know, because chances are other folks are looking for the same thing.
Yeah, one of the areas in this course that has a fair amount is kind of towards the bottom, but especially when you have students with any kind of disability or looking for different ways where you need to adapt, again, your assignment settings, things like that for accessibility. So there are a number of resources there on how to do that. And then, I don't know, Dave, you can also share, I mean, we have another one that's, again, admittedly, they're not as, the information is all there. They are not as visually appealing as they could be, but we have a Keep Learning class as well in Canvas. And again, it's open to any of the students. We have both of these that you can get to them from our Ferris Engage blog. But again, that has a lot of resources, especially targeting those things that we talked about in the beginning of the presentation today, as well as other things for students, helping them get started, helping them manage their time, things like that. Angela, I know, you know, with your role in advising, this might be a place that you might want to send students, as well as take a look and see if there are other things that are missing. There are a few quote teachers in there that are from other areas of the college besides, you know, me, where they look at different things like how to help students create groups and things like that. So this is a course that, and as well as the other one, but this one in particular, if you have resources that you would like us to add, or if you would like to take an active role, I will happily include you in this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're actually well ahead of schedule. So any last minute questions? We don't want to keep you longer than necessary.
Are there any topics that you would like us to perhaps either do a 2-minute tech tip on, or think about for professional development, you know, whether it's, you know, in the next month or two, or even for January, where we're looking at, you know, different ways that we can support faculty and staff. So I don't know if you have particular ideas, but we would also be happy to hear those.
I don't have any right now, but I'm assuming as I begin to learn my role and everybody else's, maybe in the future, but I definitely wrote down your guys' names. So if I think of anything, I will share.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, at 1 week into being in this role and being hired, you don't need to remember anything except our names, and we can send you, and we will not think, you know, badly if you say, hey, I remember, because yeah, the first weeks can be very overwhelming with the amount of new stuff. Yeah, just reach out anytime. Well, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to everyone, and we highly appreciate you taking your time over this lunch hour, and hopefully we will see you again in some of our other sessions.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.